I had not been long serving as a military doctor when orders came through to join the Air Force at Randolph Field in Texas. And we were asked, who wants to go overseas? Well, two of us put up our hands. One went to the Pacific, and he is one that I still know. And the other was me. And I said, I would like to go to England. Then I went to the School of Aviation Medicine. In other words, let's see now. I was to give training in the effects of lack of oxygen, high altitude training, etc., as the air pressure at 12,000 feet is much lower than at sea level. And to pressurize a cabin, well, it needs high pressure air pumped into it, how a tire is pumped up. But there were no pressurized cabins then, and the crews were really suffering. They would experience hypoxia, lack of oxygen in other words. The effects don't really start until 12,000 feet of altitude. The air thins as the plane ascends. It's the bends, actually. The same thing divers get when they go underwater and then come up too fast. Dissolved gases inside their bodies returning into bubbles on depressurization. Joint pain and rashes, paralysis, and even death. Very difficult to handle when you're flying an airplane. Aeratitis was another problem, from air bubbles in the ears, a sudden acute ear pain, or even a temporary loss of hearing as the aircraft climbs or descends. So I did training to teach aircrew what the lack of oxygen was like on the ground, so they would recognize it in the air, help them deal with it before they passed out, or worse. We had a decompression chamber, a cylinder lent to us by the RAF. They would line the troops up, make a schedule, and make sure they all got training about lack of oxygen. This training was to persuade them to use their oxygen mask in the air. We played poker, actually. We, the teachers, were on oxygen, and the crew were without oxygen. And we did win a lot of the crew's money, actually. That taught them very quickly what lack of oxygen did to their brains. One tragedy. It was over Holland, I think, actually, and a squadron, and there were 12 men, and none of them came back. After this, they paid attention to the need for oxygen at 12,000 feet. So that was a lesson that was learned. Our crews were also exposed to extreme cold temperatures at high altitudes, the gunners in particular. With air blowing in at minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing their hands onto the machine guns, well, that's where frostbite occurred. The higher they went, the colder it got. They issued crews with electrically heated flying suits with boots and gloves, all wired and plugged together. If the suits failed, men would lose fingers, whole limbs to frostbite. Most planes go up now are pressurized to avoid hypoxia. It wasn't the case back then. This was before the B-29, but now things have changed. Most all the high-flying planes have pressurized cabins now.